Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Asian Football Show. It is with great honor that I will be presenting you guys with a first on this with a professional footballer here, Hosei Kijima, who plays for St. Louis City. I'm also joined with my co-host, good friend of mine, Kenta. How are you both doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm doing all right. This is fun. I'm excited for this.
I'm telling you guys, bro, I was tuning in on Twitter all the time. This Asian football thing is this podcast is getting better and better day by day. I'm very excited to have you on the pod, Jose. So starting off right with the introduction, for those who may not know who you are and what you do, give us a little brief presentation about yourself.
My name is Hosei Kijima. I'm a current first-year professional soccer player in the MLS. I play for St. Louis City SC. I was drafted from Wake Forest University this or last December, and I joined the professional league this January. And yeah, great first year, and I guess I'm keeping on going. So trying my best.
So I think starting things off, we're gonna go with a little broad question here. So obviously you're from Japan, right? Growing up in Japan, where and when did this passion for football really come from? Is it from your parents, your family, or is it something that you got in yourself?
I think it's a little bit of both. My parents always wanted me to play some sort of sport, just recreationally. I never thought they would have that I would have become a pro in the future. But yeah, they were trying me in different soccer clubs. I used to swim as well. Played a little bit of tennis, but not too much. And yeah, so I just joined a local club, and that's when it all started. I just kept playing and kept playing. It wasn't any sort of intentional actions in, trying to grow me to become a professional or anything like that. It was just recreational for after school and just keep my body moving. So
Would you say that you've had a sort of team growing up with, whether that's in the J League or internationally, or is it like just multiple teams that you were following per se?
yeah, I mean, I follow multiple teams, but the main one I watched was Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. I was always mesmerized by them. I would watch them 6:30 in the morning, every morning in the news about how Messi scored like 5 goals against, I don't know, Arsenal or whoever it may be, so I would watch them in the news and I would just be completely just starstruck. And yeah, it inspired me a lot. Inspired me to buy my own jersey, put my own name on on the back of the Barca shirt and stuff, things like that. So yeah, it definitely inspired me a lot. But I think Barcelona would be the main team I followed when I was little.
So leading up to my next question would be who would be that sort of player that you would grow up upon? Who would be your favorite player? Would it be Lionel Messi or would it be somebody else?
When I was little, it would have been anybody on that Barcelona team. I mean, I didn't have a certain position either. When I was little, so the coach put me everywhere. Even to this day, the coach puts me everywhere. But yeah, I think obviously I love the midfield four of Messi, Busquets, Iniesta, and Xavi. But I also like the wingers of Villa and Pedro. Obviously, Eto'o was there. Puyol, Daniel was at right back, was an inspiration for me as well because I play a lot of right back. But I mean, anybody on that team honestly inspires me a lot. So
Yeah, I know you've mentioned you went to international school before coming over to the States. What was that whole experience like for you? And I mean, I'm assuming you played soccer at international school as well, but what was that experience like for you as well?
it was different from all the other everybody like all the other Japanese, you know, children because I wasn't speaking any Japanese and all I was learning was English. And we were only supposed to speak English. We would get penalized or punished for not speaking English. If we were to speak Japanese, teachers would come over and we would we'd be either scolded at or some sort of suspension. But um, besides that, I mean, it was such a nice school. I had the privilege of going there for I want to say like 6, 7 years. So right before I came to the States. And I was there from kindergarten, so it was definitely different, and it was a different culture, I guess you can say.
And you came over to the States, you went to IMG. I mean, what's that conversation like with your parents about that move? It's such a big move. Obviously, IMG's big name in terms of athletics here at the grade school level. But what was that conversation like with your parents and
Yeah.
that move?
We, so me being a little kid, they told me that the IMG coaches had scouted, quote unquote, scouted me. Um, for me to go to school there. And I was so excited because I thought I was actually being scouted by IMG. And I was to a certain point, but it was more for the school aspect. It wasn't for the soccer aspect. So um, it was more for the academic side, for the coaches, for because they wanted me to study there, not mainly soccer, obviously, but um, yeah, so I was just like, yeah, I got scouted on the team. Like they want me to be their best player, blah, blah, blah. I was a little kid, and my mom and dad were just like, they were shrugging it off. And I was like, yeah, it's not. I think he's probably, somebody told him something, something very small. But a week later, they get an email from the actual IMG Academy saying, yeah, so like we would love for your son to be a part of our team and go to school here. And the conversations went on, and basically all I said was, if you're gonna let me go, I'll go. And I really wanted to go. I didn't weigh any sort of factors into it. I was just like, yes, yes, I'm going. And my mom and dad had a little bit of back and forth for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then finally they said, yeah, you can go. So that was when I was 12. They let me go to IMG, and yeah, I guess that was the recruiting process. But nothing too major. I was just a little kid, so yeah, I was just crazy about it.
You went to Wake. I'm pretty sure you had mentioned somewhere else that that was the only school to offer you. What was that whole experience like getting that offer? And of course, a very successful career at Wake.
Yeah,
Uh,
complete transparency. I did not know who Wake Forest was before I got the offer, and Bobby Muse knows this as well. But yeah, I was looking for colleges to go to. They were mostly junior colleges, Division three, so lower tier. But yeah, I would try to email. I never thought I could go to play D1, Division one, let alone in the ACC. So yeah, a lot of emails, a lot of contacting coaches, a lot of ID camps. Um, and I got the experience for sure, playing at a high level. But then yeah, one day, Wake Forest head coach Bob Muse and then Notre Dame's head coach happened to be at IMG, watching me train. And yeah, they just wanted to give me a call and to see if I was interested. And I was like, yeah, of course. And this was after my coach told me who Wake Forest was, and I was like, yeah, I was stoked because obviously one of the best college soccer programs in the nation. But yeah, so they just brought me on a visit. It was almost seamless process. I got on the visit, looked at the campus, talked to the coaches. They showed me their project for me, and called them a week later, said, yeah, I'm coming to school here. So um, yeah, signed the contract, and then yeah, I mean it was nothing special. It was just that was the only Division One school that reached out to me. Actually, yeah, the only school that did reached out to me. All the other coaches that I emailed never got back to me, or not rejected, but just said, yeah, we don't have space or whatever it may be, understandable. But yeah, Wake Forest had welcomed me with open arms. So very thankful for that.
I think this was on your Team St. Louis's podcast show that they have when you were talking about your debut at Wake. Can you go into detail about that experience and obviously freshman year Division One? I mean, to get pulled out that early from the start.
Yeah. It was definitely it wasn't a wake up call because I knew it was a tough league, and it wasn't like I was, over my head thinking I was like the best freshman. It was nothing like that. It was more of I couldn't find this consistency in performances as a player, and I just wasn't selected to be the starting right back, and that was completely understandable. Looking back at it now, right, obviously, but um, back then I was shocked. I didn't know what to do at all. But so I mean, I'll like train at 1 a.m. because I was so mad at myself and because I couldn't get the starting job. And yeah, it was almost like I didn't reach the expectations that the coaches had set for me. And yeah, it was definitely tough, but I think that was probably the toughest obstacle I have faced so far um as a football player, not a professional, but my footballing career. So I learned a lot and I applied a lot the next year, and yeah, it just went up from there. So
Yeah, you definitely had ultimately a very successful career at Wake. Do you have a favorite moment from your time there?
so I won't pinpoint one because there was a lot of great moments, especially on the field, but it was, and I said this in my other interviews with Wake Forest um, newspaper articles as well, is it was the the need to consistently perform every single day. And it was the pressure I had on my shoulders that I wouldn't have asked for it to be any different, because that's what made me what I am today. Um, One mistake, you get yelled at. Two mistakes, you might get kicked out of training. Things like that. Three mistakes, you might get taken off the starting lineup. And it was that every single day, and I just couldn't love it anymore. And yeah, it trained my mind, it trained my body to play well under pressure. And yeah, it was a great experience. Bobby Moose always yells at me when I make a mistake, stupid, brain farts or stupid mistakes. And it was always such a um, I'm very appreciative of that. And he obviously gave me the opportunity to do that there as well in the first place. So I'm very thankful for him as a coach.
Come this past December, MLS Super Draft comes around. I remember watching this whole broadcast over on, I think it was on YouTube or wherever it was. You were in Japan, and I'm pretty sure it was like the middle of the night when
Yes.
when this was going on. Talk me through this whole experience because I've heard so many different stories from people that had, that ended up getting drafted. St. Louis ultimately ended up trading up for you at the 17th pick. But yeah, just talk me through that whole super draft experience for you.
It was it was it was surreal, to be honest with you. I can't remember exactly what time, but roughly the draft itself started at 5 a.m. Japan time. And 5 a.m., yeah, it's okay. Like I'll wake up maybe 30 minutes before and I'll get ready. They wanted me to be up at 1 a.m. preparing. So they wanted me to be, I think it was 2 hours before the actual broadcast, not the draft, the broadcast started. So I was up at 1 a.m. setting up because we didn't have a TV either because it was a temporary apartment. My mom had rented out for because she was in the process of moving. And so we didn't have any couches, we didn't have any TVs. We basically had a dining table and some cushions. And so we had to make it happen somehow. And so I had a LG ultra wide monitor. So I just put that on the dining table. And then I had my computer to the side with my camera set and everything. And then I just put four cushions. I think it was like a massage chair, one dining chair, and like two cushions just alongside like the wall, like facing the monitor. And we just waited basically. And yeah, what's crazy is, and a lot of people don't know this, but my mom started cooking during the draft because she didn't think I was going to get picked because 17th pick, it took about, I think, 2.5 hours to reach it because, each, segment for each draft pick, each team, what they're looking for, things like that. So it took about 2.5 hours. My mom started cooking eggs in the morning for breakfast. And I'm like, Mom, what are we doing, Mom? And so yeah, I was like, Mom, come back. Like, you have to watch this. You have to wait because it could be any time now. And so, but she didn't believe I was gonna get picked. But eventually, it came to the 17th pick, and then St. Louis drafted me. So I'm thankful for that. But bizarre stories for sure.
Yeah, the super draft that the last couple of years that I've been covering MLS, I it's such a long process. Like
Yeah,
even for just me as a person that's watching for, I cover Cincinnati, like for watching that for like those two or three Cincinnati picks, it takes forever. So I can't imagine kind of the emotions that you're going through sitting there for hours and hours on end. I
yeah,
mean, how high were those like nerves and that anxiety going into every pick going by?
for sure. I mean, I will say though, like it being a long process, they do explain a lot. You know, if it's like how, so I mean, they basically explain everything, like how the team ended up last year, how they did last year, and then what they're looking for, scouting through the college ranks, and then who they actually picked, and then explaining how they came up here, what kind of profile it brings, etc. But I think it may be long, but I think it's very informative for the viewers and as well as other teams to scout the teams that are drafting at that current moment. But in terms of emotions, it was basically I was thinking that my football career would have ended. It was going to end that night, that morning. And because if I don't get drafted, I wasn't really going to go anywhere. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I could have gone back to college again, but it's just tough stuff. So, um, yeah, it was either I can keep continuing to play or not. And so it was an emotional roller coaster for sure. And it was so difficult trying to keep, you know, being steady almost.
I'm sure you're in somewhat aware of kind of the pre-draft process for at least other sports, whether that be the NBA, NFL, MLB. They have kind of that combine, and they have workouts for individual teams. And MLS, you don't really hear about this. What was that kind of leading into the draft? What did you communicate with teams? Did you have private workouts and training sessions? Like what was that whole process like for you as a player going into that draft?
So the only thing that was similar to other sports, I think, was the MLS Combine. And so that was through invitation only. I think there was 44 players in college that were picked, and it was in Grand Canyon University Stadium. And we were flown out, and we got all this gear, which was sick. Cool Adidas gear, and then so we basically had I think two or three training days, and then um, I think there's two either one or two full games we played in front of all 30 MLS coaches and scouts. So um, yeah, that was an experience for sure. Again, there was a lot of pressure because that could have been a make it or break it situation where if I didn't perform, I wasn't going to play for the rest of my life. But luckily, I was able to perform. I think I played decent, not the best, not the worst, but decent. And I also went through interviews with these clubs and scouts. I think I went through about, can't remember exactly, maybe it was 16 different interviews. So 16 different teams wanted to talk to me, and I was like, yeah, for sure. Like I would love to. And so grateful for that. But I basically made sure that I knew each team's tactics, tendencies, in possession tendencies, out of possession tendencies, basically trying to figure out their game model and certain maybe vocabulary they used. I tried to search it up, what kind of vocabulary they used for the first team, second team. And yeah, so when the question is asked, so what do you know about our club? And I basically give them the whole analysis of their whole team, whole club, how they played last year, and how I fit in their profile and how I could help the team win games this following year. So it was not only fun, but it was definitely worth the time because I enjoyed watching a lot of these teams play and how there are a lot of different playing styles, a lot of different ideologies, and yeah, just to think about all those things and also get to know the coaches as well. So
Is there any way we can get some sort of insight as to which clubs were interested heading into the Super Draft?
So I actually don't know. Just because they interviewed you doesn't mean they were interested. And yeah, I mean, I had just signed with my agent, and my agent texted me just, yeah, just see what happens. But he didn't tell me any sort of information. I didn't know at all. I mean, I had no idea St. Louis was even looking at me at that time. So yeah, I don't know.
You get drafted first preseason. I remember this picture that you posted on your story when you guys played the LA Galaxy of you with Miki Yamane and Maya Yoshida, the three of you guys. Talk me through that moment post match, if you can. I mean,
Yeah,
that's such a cool photo for you to have.
what a moment, right? Because yeah, I mean, national team captain, Kawasaki right back. I mean, can't get any better than that if you ask me. Because I mean, I always play futsal in Kawasaki when I go back home, and obviously I live in Yokohama, so it's literally like a 15-minute train ride, and I'm there, you know. So um, yeah, definitely surreal. And I was so surprised that they were actually like welcoming of me as a Japanese player in the MLS. And um, Yoshida actually had sent me through one of his teammates a photo of him holding my jersey. And let me see if I can find it for you so I can show you guys. Um, Definitely a crazy moment. I was showing my mom, I was showing my sister, I was showing everybody. Um, I don't know if I can find it. Let me see.
How does a jersey swap work between a 1v2? I mean, do you get both of their jerseys? Is that how that went for that preseason match?
When I jersey swapped, so that was on my debut. It wasn't during preseason, but um Yamane wasn't there at like at that moment. So give me a second. I found it. I found it. Here you go. Here you go. So they sent this to me, which I'm never gonna delete. I'm never deleting this photo. I mean, this is the legendary Japanese national team captain holding my own jersey after 2 months of playing pro. So yeah, so the jersey swap itself, I was just like, yo, can I get your jersey, please? I mean, right? I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't begging, right? But it was like, I looked up to you my whole life, I've always watched you perform, especially in World Cups, in the Premier League and wherever it may be they played. They were always on the news. They were such a they were such a almost towering figure in Japanese athletic, not only soccer, but athletics. So yeah, definitely a surreal moment for me. And thank you to him and Mr. Yamane for welcoming me into the league. So
Your first team like debut came in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which like out of all the competitions you can make your debut in for MLS team standards, that's like the best you can make it, right? And maybe outside the Club World Cup, but you need to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup to make that. So, in that sense, it's the biggest match. You come on in the 86th minute, you score the winner in the 90th at City Park, it erupts. I remember watching this at home and just being so mind blown by that. Talk me through that 48-hour stretch because you signed your pro contract the day before
yeah, it was announced. No, it was the announced day of.
and the day off. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
talk me through that stretch of time.
yeah, so
That's such a roller coaster.
I mean, yeah, I was so basically they announced my signing 11 a.m. that day, and then obviously game day comes so quick. The game comes so quick. So I was obviously selected in the roster. That was the first thing, and I was just like, thank you so much for selecting me in the roster. And um, it was really cool to see the process of game day, like inside of the team, um, like through warm up, what kind of warm up they do, and then what time they come in, what time they come out, national anthems, lineups, anything it may be. So I was sitting on the bench, and first game of the season, obviously St. Louis is so crazy about the game, which I love so much. Um, I can't remember how many people there were, but for sure thousands, that tens of thousands for sure. And I remember telling myself, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm a pro now. And so I only saw it on TV. I've only seen it on TV, or I've only sat in the stands. I've never been in game, like on the field or on the bench. And so it was insane. But let alone sitting on the bench, uh Bradley calls me up and says, "You're going in." And I'm like, first of all, thank you so much. Second of all, like I'm gonna I'm gonna perform for you. It was 4 minutes, but like I was gonna do whatever he told me and whatever I could do. And so I go in. We shifted in a more defensive formation, and basically it was more instinctive. I saw the ball, the guy had a bad touch. Houston's guy had a bad touch, and then I just picked it off, and something told me to just shoot it. And I saw the bottom right wide open. So yeah, I just almost passed it in there, and then I scored the game winner. So it's the action itself wasn't like, oh, I'm about to score this game winner. It was so seamless. It was like I wasn't thinking, and I just executed. But then after that, the crowd erupts. Obviously, I had goosebumps all over myself, and um, but yeah, again, the one thing I always say is just I couldn't have done it without Bradley or the other coaches putting me into the game, let alone, our technical director Lutz drafting me, right? And Hack drafting me. So just grateful for all the opportunities that the club is giving me. And yeah, I was glad I was able to give a good moment to the fans and everybody that's part of the team. So
So this season, you split minutes between the first and the second team, and the latter, starting their playoff run this weekend in the MLS Next Pro playoffs. So how would you describe that first professional season with St. Louis, and how excited are you for the upcoming playoff game against LAFC 2?
how would I describe it? That's a good question. It was definitely what I expected in terms of the intensity of the game. Um, Both MLS Next Pro and the MLS. It's physical, it's fast, it's high IQ, it's good technique. Um, and yeah, I have so much fun playing against opponents. Obviously, like not only Messi, but like obviously LA Galaxy with Ricky Puig, um, Denny Boanga for LAFC, the big names for sure. I have a lot of fun just even watching them play. Um, MLS Next Pro as well. It's highly competitive because obviously there's a bunch of first team players coming down for other teams as well. So it's highly competitive. It's not a league where you go down to just get minutes, at least not for me. And it's for me, it was always about winning as well. And it's such a tough league because, people want to prove themselves. And that's something I love about MLS Next Pro as well. But both leagues, I learned a lot from them, not only about the game, but also um, whether it was technique or like just physical development in general. And so, yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more excited about next season. So, yeah, overall, very intense, very fast. It's for sure the pro game.
I wonder, this has sparked some debate over on social media for this MLS MVP, right? The Landon Donovan Award. As you as a player, you've shared the pitch with some of the best players, the candidates, the top candidates for this award. Who's your pick?
So I'm a guy. You ask me who my favorite player is, I'll tell you 10. So because I study the game almost in a coach's lens, not a fan's lens. So I don't just pick my favorite player, but I highlight each player's best qualities and what they're good at and what they bring to each team, what they bring to certain games. Um, but I would say that the nominations of that Landon Donovan Award is spot on, I think. but I think that's all I can give you because I just don't have a favorite player because I love so many of them. I just can't give you one single player to. I would want everybody to win it, all of the nominations to win it. So
I'm sure you've been asked this plenty of times in the past, whether in interviews or perhaps in person, but looking into the future of your own career, what are your, I guess you can say, career goals per se?
I mean, the main thing is to just improve every single year. Um, that's something I pride myself with, and that's something I've always focused on is no matter what kind of a season I have, is what can I improve on and how much I can improve on these things. And it may not be, it's not a destination, but the process, it's a cliche, but I like focusing on the destination, of course, but I love focusing on the process more, I think, because I love focusing on, the moment itself, where I am today, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. So it's these things that all encompass, my one goal, which is improving no matter what. Doesn't have to be per year. It can be per day, it can be per minute, it can be per second. So it's just improving, 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 and that's all that matters to me, I think.
One of my closest colleagues within the MLS being a good friend of mine, Justin Horniker, who writes for St. Louis Magazine over for your team. I was talking to him, must have been like mid-February at this point, start of the season, about how you were fitting in with the club. I was curious, and he had mentioned how you've written college papers on like tactical analysis. So I guess the easy question to ask is like, when did that part of the game where like you were call it I guess an obsession if you want. Like when did that start for the in terms of the tactical side of the game for you?
It was when Bobby Muse told me in his office that I don't watch enough football. And I was like, okay, I'll show you. And no, but he flipped a switch at me where now everything revolved becoming a better football player and just evolving. He uses the word evolve a lot instead of improve, but it's true. You can evolve doing these things in terms of, writing papers, reading, whatever. Obviously not writing papers as a player, right? But it's a little bit bizarre. But like reading articles, watching video, analyzing video, these things, it's a way to get better when you're not playing. And I think that's what sets the best apart is what you're doing off the field, um, to make you a better player, especially in the mind, in terms of not only your mindset and mentality, but also game IQ and how you see the game, how you can change games. So many things can be improved just with I was gonna say one computer, but with the phone, right? You can do so many things. That's why Twitter is, you guys obviously contacted me there, but Twitter is such a good platform for me because all I see is tactics, methodologies, coaches talking about, 3v2 drills, transitioning into 4v3, um, how Kyle Walker inverted against whoever, wide wingers, whatever it may be. So I can go on and on about those things, but it's instead of scrolling through Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or TikTok, I scroll through those and it gives me so much knowledge of the game. And obviously, the most challenging thing is to apply that onto the field. But again, I think that in itself is a challenge of just taking in knowledge and seeing how new players and coaches see the game and how they apply certain things. So
Yeah, I was talking to Justin because I when we announced you as our interview, I was talking to him about you, and he had mentioned something about your current interim head coach, Jack, talking about having to kick you out of the coaches' room because you're always in there, always asking questions. Um, I gotta ask, like, what's that relationship like right now with Hackworth and the coaching staff over there in St. Louis for you?
um yeah, me and Hack have a lot of different conversations in terms of methodologies and which pass was right, which pass wasn't, why he should be here, why he shouldn't. But we definitely see the game in some different ways, but mostly the same. But yeah, we have a lot of conversations about that. Yeah, me and Coach Hackworth, we both obviously come from Wake Forest, so we have some sort of ties there, and it's great to work with him. His knowledge of the game, um, expands my knowledge of the game as well. So it's so good to learn from him, and so good to see how he leads our team.
I would be foolish not to bring this up. Implementing provocative football in futsal 5v5. Obviously, I'm sure you've been asked about this, that this you brought. I mean, I'm a Brighton fan myself, and so I watched Roberto De Zerbi last year with the Brighton team. So obviously, a lot of tactical parts from his game were implemented into this. Kind of walk me through this without going into too much detail because that would take a very long time. Uh, what was the inspiration? Obviously, I think you said it was for kind of a intramural tournament, which feels like absurd overkill for an intramural tournament. But talk me through this.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I was obsessed with how De Zerbi played, especially when he was at Brighton. So a futsal team had asked me to coach them, and I was like, okay, futsal. And so, how can I implement my coaching style and my identity as a team, like a team identity that I would like to apply into futsal? So instead of 11v11, it would be 5v5, which was a big difference. It wasn't like 11v11 maybe versus a 9v9. It was more than half the players are gone, you know. But it's 5v5, but it was 4v4 with the goalkeeper. So it's almost 4v4. Obviously small area, but trying not to go into too much detail. It was, I say, the creative process. I say that under the title because it had never been done before. And I had to come up with patterns, formations, systems that fit the Zerbi style, but in a 5v5. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. But what wasn't straightforward was for the players, especially because they were soccer players, but they were obviously doing it recreationally. It was so difficult for them to understand the concept of like basically being provocative with the ball. And so like not passing it around at tempo. That's been the possession-based team ideal. But now Roberto De Zerbi comes in and says, no, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And that was exactly me. I was like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be, you know, always protecting the ball, facing your own goal, trying to turn, it doesn't have to be like that. Yeah, it can be structured in a way. And so I showed them certain, like, obviously film from Brighton. I also showed them Shakhtar when he was there and Sassuolo when he was there. So a lot of different examples and a lot of teaching ended up helping them a lot. And um, they won the whole tournament that year. So they won the whole thing and they got shirts, they got trophy, like a small plastic trophy, whatever it may be. But it was good to see them win. It was good to see them happy and, playing the style that not only I wanted to, but they agreed and they wanted to as well. So
Zooming out uh, towards Asia in general, um, do you follow the Japanese national team closely? Do you analyze the team like you do with other footballing stuff?
not closely, but I have in the past, yes.
So, do you watch the current qualifying rounds? Did you watch them during the Asian Cup per se?
I did watch during the Asian Cup, I think.
So,
Not all.
coming up against that defeat against Iran, which was the Asian Cup that I think everyone around the world was expecting Japan to win. Where do you see Samurai Blue go from there? They're the only team that is 9 out of 9 points in the qualifying round currently for Asia. What do you expect from them, either under Hajime Moriyasu or with another coach in the future? Where do you see Japan in the next few years? I guess that would be the best way to phrase it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Japan has always been an underdog team. I don't think many people expected them to go that far in that. When was it? The last World Cup? No, the two World Cups before. Um, they went, I think, to the round of 16, if I'm not mistaken. But I was shocked too because I didn't expect that either. But um, instead of becoming an underdog team, I think it's in the next few years, I think they'll be a team of high expectations because of what they're producing now, and what they produced in the past, I want to say maybe 6, 7 years. The players they have as well, there's a lot of Japanese players now that are coming up, especially in Europe, that I think can help the team a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Coach Moriyasu is very good. I must say he is very good. His not only his tactics but his leadership and management, I think is second to none. And yeah, if they keep continuing to go on, maybe even a title contender for the World Cup, but that may be too soon. But definitely they can go far in any type of tournament. I think they do if they can perform consistently.
And that leads me to my next point here, J League wise. Do you ever see yourself going back to Japan to play, or maybe in Asia one day?
Yes, in Japan, yes, I do see myself playing there for, I think once I sort of my end of my career. I think I've I've thought about going there. Obviously, it's too very too soon to to think about my end of my career because I just started it. But um, yeah, it's been. I want to do something like what Kagawa's doing right now, where it goes back almost not retirement, but towards the end of his career, after a great career. I think it'll be good, because I want to live in Japan and I also want to learn professional methodology in Japan as well. So to maybe eventually coach in Japan as well. So yeah, definitely a yes to that. And we'll see what it brings.
Yet again, zooming out of Japan itself, what do you think of Asian football as a whole? Because it is a continent that I would say is growing day by day. Its football is growing. A lot of Asian sides performing well at the World Cup, as we saw. Japan was one of them, Korea was another, even Saudi Arabia, who shockingly beat Argentina. What do you think of that, per se?
I love it. I love supporting not only my own country, but obviously my own continent, right? It's it goes against contemporary opinions of Asian football. And I'm not saying people think we're bad, but I also don't think people think we're good. And I think it's good that upcoming national teams are beating these big teams that have, track record in the past of winning most games. And yeah, for sure it's in process, but for sure it's getting there, I think. And I think um, a lot of different coaches implement new playing styles, new methodologies for younger development as well in academies. So that'll definitely help in terms of the long-term, development of youth national team players and national team players. But yeah, overall it's in the process, but we're definitely not far to becoming a prominent continent within the footballing world.
Because the next the next World Cup will have a lot more teams, right? Which means that there will be more Asian sides as well. There's the usual big four, big five that always qualifies: Iran, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Australia, and South Korea. Those are like the main guys that usually end up going to the World Cup. But we're probably going to see the addition of new teams. Some would say it's Uzbekistan, the UAE, or Qatar, or these sort of teams. Do you believe that? Did you agree with the new format of the World Cup? And do you see Asian sides doing well with this new format? Do you think it lets them go further than what they would usually do in past formats.
Yes, yes, for sure. I think because the World Cup is opening up to more countries, so the countries in Asia that hadn't made the World Cup never had the opportunity to showcase what they could do in certain games. And every game is different. Every game, you don't know the result until it's been played. So you can have predictions, you can have expectations, but it doesn't mean those expectations will always be a reality. So anything can happen in a football match. And I think it's really good for these Asian countries, smaller Asian countries, to showcase their ability and see what they can do, even if it doesn't go well. At least the experience, stacks it up and gives players the opportunity to improve and coaches to improve as well. So I think it's definitely a positive note for Asian football.
That's pretty much all I would have. I don't think there's anything Kenta wants to add to this. Moving on, we're gonna talk a little bit about some fan questions, and we've had a lot. Actually, lots of them would kind of chime in together. So we tried to get a few in. So I'll go with the first one. I think we'll alternate between Kenta and I just to make it fair. I'll go with the first one, and this one comes from a good friend of ours of the podcast, at Watanabe2K. He's also from Japan. And this is an interesting one here. So it's a little game, start, bench, and sell between Nakata, Shunsuke Nakamura, and Yasuhito Endo. The stage is all yours.
Yeah, but these three are like you can't put three different legends into one category, man. I mean, oh God. Do I have to give an answer?
No, no, you don't. But I think your answer already kind of just shows how good these three players are, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Ideally, if you're a manager, you would start all three of them, right? In some
sure,
way.
for sure. There's my midfield three right there.
Yeah. All right. That's a fair answer. I can't complain
Hey,
with that
perfect.
answer.
I'm glad I don't have to go through that conflict.
We got one from Armin Kadrimi. The question is, considering almost all the players in the Japanese national team play in European clubs, is there a pathway to the national team through MLS? The other part of this question was if you had been contacted with by the manager, I guess Hajime Moriyasu or any of the staff, or do you need to see some kind of move before you think that that would be on the table?
It's a great question. I'm gonna just say straight up, I don't know, because people said there wasn't an international pathway for college draft picks to go through MLS, but here I am. So definitely anything can happen. I would say though, it's probably a little bit easier as a Japanese player to go to Europe before I go to national team. But then again, anything can happen. And I also don't think I'm good enough as of yet to even play in a youth national team. So a long ways to go here, and I'm just focused on here right now as well. So yeah, I don't know, and anything can happen. It's my two just short-winded questions again.
Yeah,
Short-winded answer.
because I remember I was dissecting this last year when Yohei Takaoka came over
Yes.
from Yokohama over to Vancouver, and he was kind of within that national team conversation. He hasn't gotten a call up. He's been playing very well too for Vancouver, and now Miki Yamada, who is also in and out of that national team in the with the Galaxy squad, playing very incredible season for them as well, and he hasn't gotten a call up there. I don't want to point at those two examples and say, well, because those two have happened, MLS isn't a pathway for the national team. It's not an avenue they're looking at, but it's certainly something that raises that question where it's like you have players that were in and out of that national team are trying to they're on the cusp of making it, and then they're in MLS, they're performing well, and you haven't seen that first call up or that call up since. So that's where that question I think comes from. But yeah, it's certainly interesting to see with some, especially with with Miki Yamane, because he's had those caps for the national team.
The third one comes from at @Durkinprop_, and you kind of went over it in the beginning of the podcast. How would you compare the playing style in the MLS as compared to college soccer, really?
Okay, so the first thing I'll point out is you can't really compare leagues because there's no set playing style in a league. So I don't think you can compare leagues in terms of playing style. But if you wanted to compare Wake Forest and St. Louis, Wake Forest is very possession based. And in contrast, St. Louis is much more of a gegenpress pressing system, and each has its own benefits. And obviously, it's my first time playing in a gegenpressing system here, so I've learned a lot from it. So I'm really grateful for that. But the one thing I will say is the MLS is much more intense and faster and stronger than college. College, ACC was a very physical league, but I came to the MLS and I'm seeing it's not much more, but it's definitely more in terms of physicality and speed of the game is definitely higher, I would say.
It's got a very fun question, I guess, here from Apton KH. Do you watch Blue Lock or I guess any soccer related anime?
Um, Everybody on my team is recommending me that since I was at Wake Forest and here in St. Louis. But I'm like, no, I don't watch anime. The
None.
only Well, I wouldn't say none. The only thing I watch is Inazuma 11, but that was because I watched it when I was little, along with FC Barcelona, FC Barcelona. Before I go to school, I'll watch those two things, and then I'll go to school. But it was more of I guess, a memory jogger, if you will, um, for me to just watch it and see what kind of just you know see if I can bring something out that's different in me. But also, cherish the memories I had in Japan playing football there. So
This one comes from at G_Clem, who asks, what do you think is the most challenging position you've played so far in your career?
that is a great question. Challenging, more difficult, more difficult. I'll probably say either the 6 or the 8 because you can get pressed from anywhere. Um, I think that's about it, and why it's such a difficult position because you have to have constant awareness of everything around you, and you have to constantly adapt to the environment around you. And it's difficult to do it as a human, but the best do it so well. And yeah, I want to improve in that, I guess. So the most challenging thing is almost something that um also something that I want to improve on. So I would say center midfield. I mean anywhere in the center midfield, probably.
One last
I have something to add. All right, before.
sorry.
I remember back to this MLS Super Draft, right? I remember you had your interview after you got drafted. I think it was with Andrew Wiebe because he did all the interviews, I think, for that show. And I think he had asked you something along the lines of like, what's your greatest like strength or like your best trait? And you had said something along the lines of your versatility, right? Um, we asked you what your most challenging position is. What do you think what's the best position for you? Where do you thrive the most, regardless of system? Like what position do you find yourself excelling in the most or bringing the most to the team?
Ah, such a difficult question. It changes all the time. I would say right now it would be the 8. And it's something where it's a position where not only I can use my defensive positioning, IQ, physicality, whatever it may be, to help the team, but also when the ball goes forward, I play as an attacking player. And I think Marcelo Bielsa has said this before, is you can't really find many players that can play the 8 because they play they defend like a 6 and they attack like a 10. And for sure it's difficult to find because you're one or the other. But I think I would. That's it. It also connects to me being versatile, where I can do many things, but it should be in one position, and I think the eight encompasses that very, very well. And that will be my final answer. I think it's eight for now.
A non-soccer related question here. What would be the favorite thing for you to do in St. Louis? Non-soccer related.
Oh, go to coffee shops and watch soccer. That's
Fair
it.
enough.
That's it.
Fair enough.
What's that again?
St. Louis barbecue, have you is that a big thumbs
Uh,
up, big thumbs down, somewhere in
oh,
between?
yeah, I think the media staff brought in some barbecue. I think it was really good. It was
Hmm.
right off the bone. They, I think, cooked it at the facility too. So it was, yeah, it was great. It was really good.
It's very well known in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this interview. Unless Kenta, is there something you want to add?
No, I think we're good. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the time. It was great
Any
to
any final words?
final words. No, thank you for the opportunity. I always say after these interviews, like it's not just me telling the world, but also me reflecting for myself. So putting into words what you guys ask me, help me to go over, my life, but also most importantly the game. And yeah, it's great to always reflect and always refining the details and evolving, as Bobby Mu says. So yeah, this is always you guys are always welcome to interview me anytime. So, thank you again.
So that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Asian Football Show, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, or any other podcast service. Make sure to follow us on our social medias, our Instagram, our Twitter. Everything will be down in the description for you guys to check out. I will also be putting Jose's social media links on in the description for you guys to check out. And that pretty much puts it to bed. Thank you guys so much for listening.